The stream's
It's out to the
live.
public.
We are going to be chatting about things tonight. I'm happy to say my brothers and I are joined by some of our friends from the recent Mordheim Invitational. Um, Bill here, who ran the whole event, Eric from Eric's Hobby Workshop, and Alex, who also has a YouTube channel, a new YouTube channel.
Promising young game designer.
That's
with
true.
A game that he's already released and one on the way about cowboys.
That's cool.
Pretty
well, thanks
cool.
everybody for joining us
Thank you.
tonight. I'm excited to just kind of leisurely talk about Mordheim and the experience at the event.
And
thanks for
obviously
joining
we're
us.
fashionably late.
Oh yeah. Well, it turns out getting 6 people together from all different places to chat about things it's hard. And it's going surprisingly well, I would say, but
My webcam doesn't work anymore.
cool.
Pretty cool.
Well, so how's everybody doing?
Great.
I'm doing
well.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, same.
You know,
Glad to be here.
good to see everybody after the event. Wish we were still playing more time.
Yeah, I mean,
Do you guys actually want to play right now? Do you want to just call this and play over a webcam?
Seeing how crappy our webcam.
Why are we talking? Let's roll some dice.
I've done some webcam 40K games with my brother who lives in Europe, and it works. It works.
Okay.
We'd have like one fixed computer just that can see the whole table, and then one handheld camera.
Mhm.
And my brother would say, I'd set up 2 armies here, or we do it vice versa because now he's got enough over there too. And he'd say, "Oh, I need to see what can those guys see over there," and you just bring the camera around. It works out.
Yeah, we played some Blitzball on Twitch with a webcam.
We did.
And like a little dice cam that, I don't know. We weren't very great at it. Partially not being great at the game and partially not being adept at like talking while we're playing the game, because I suspect it was probably ultimately boring as hell. Because people can't really see what the models were pushing around, but it's fine. Things are fine.
Streams are hard for wargaming.
Yeah, it's true.
One of the things, especially like neoprene mats, don't seem to photograph well. That's one of my big things. It's like the
That's
sheen
so
of a
true.
neoprene mat on a stream. It just gets me every time.
Yeah, they look so good in person and they look terrible in photograph. That's so true.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's like
Gonna throw some shade down here, but say like they're not compelling games to play, so they're also not compelling games to watch. Fair.
No, not everything is a spectator sport. It's true.
When it comes to like Warhammer 40,000, not great game.
It never was, I don't think.
It looks like the YouTube thing isn't working right.
The Twitch is though, so I'm gonna link the Twitch. That's that seems to be the working link.
Stuff never.
I mean, to me, I said this earlier. I watched a video by Discourse Miniatures, and she did this poll about how many people who are in the hobby actually have ever played, and it was like I think less than half. And
okay, that makes sense.
It does make sense. I've played a lot less than I've generally hobbied, and it's because I think to me the wargaming has always just been a pretense to cover a table in terrain and put cool minis on it, and then get down at eye level and just enjoy it, and I don't really care about winning particularly. I think that's why I like Mordheim so much, is because it's really heavy on that end, really light on the power gaming. How do I master the system of rules and optimize things to get the W? It's like if you're in Mordheim for the win, then you're probably the wrong attitude.
Yeah, I agree.
If you're in it for the win, you have Max Skaven all slings all the time.
Yeah.
I'm a little upset that I wasn't able to play against Skaven. I almost would like to make a warband of them because I think all of them have like the base movement of 5 and stuff. That sounds engaging and fun because the game certainly movement is a big part of the game, more so.
Well, they
than
also
I think
have
some
pretty
of the
good
other
initiative
games.
too. I think at least
Okay.
4, maybe even higher, which makes them more reliable to like climbing and jumping and stuff. So they're less likely to fall in a hole or
Fall
like
down a well and die.
High model count. You take into consideration just general action economy. Like you can outdo anything you want to do versus your opponent. The one thing that they lack is their leadership. Like just don't get to the point where you have to rout because they're cowards.
They're gone.
Yeah. Like rats from a sinking ship.
Right. They're gonna flee immediately, but otherwise they're incredibly versatile in terms of getting around the board and like what you need them to do. They're great.
There's definitely some appeal in having the extra movement because half of my strategy when I play Mordheim is getting my guys to like a cool position.
Yeah, let's get some cool.
It's like I want to get a guy up in the top of that building over there. That'll look awesome.
I want good photography, and I don't care about winning. That's what we were just talking about.
Let's go in this tall vantage over here. There's some nice sunlight on that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To do that, you just need to be like one of those wizards or sorcerers and just teleport where you want to go.
Yeah.
Jimmy.
That's how we ended up with that wizard duel in the top of the tower. That was awesome.
True.
That's how my warlock got there.
Who won that fight, actually?
Who do
you think?
Yeah, that's sort of what I thought.
Jimmy's Magister or whatever, and the warlock for hire that Bill had.
Well, Jimmy's his Magister, did he have the demon weapon then?
Yeah, he had like
26
attacks. I think turned my warlock into like taco soup.
That's bad.
It was bad. Like my vampire was pretty strong, but Jesus Christ, it couldn't have stood against that magistrate. Like nothing could have.
Yeah, I had nobody anywhere close. I mean, you can't get that beefy as a human to deal with some of those big possessed models and.
Jimmy was really he knew the rules well enough to like know what he should be searching for and like really take advantage of things, whereas like that was not me.
Do you guys feel like we got hustled by Jimmy all week?
No.
Did you bet on your games with him?
Yeah, right. Like he knew what he was doing a little too well.
Well, I mean, Eric's last game against him, Jimmy helped Eric win. Eric asked him, well, like, is there a way that I can position my models such that you can't, like, teleport in, etc.? And, like, Jimmy was like, yeah, I think so. And he helped figure out exactly how.
It's like, okay, like, what can I do to, like, ensure you can't charge so that I can win? And then it's like, yeah, okay, you should probably move this one here. Yeah, so, good dude.
Yeah, he's really good about
Jimmy's a legend, man.
Yeah. I needed the help.
I sure did too.
So perhaps with this in mind, maybe we want to just get into the general podcast portion of this so that we, don't retread certain ground about the event, but afterwards we can continue to chat about random things. But is that okay for everybody?
Totally.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna start then. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Dragged into Turbolasers, a Between the Bolter and Me podcast. I'm your host, Eric Wire, and I'm here with my two brothers, Adam Wire.
Hey, everybody.
And Greg Wire. And I'm really excited to say that we are also joined with three others who actually recently took part in a narrative event called Mordheim 2022. The first of which is actually the host, Bill Ford. Nice to have you here, Bill.
Hey, good to see you guys again.
Yeah. And then two other participants. One, Alex, who on AV Hobbies and has a new YouTube channel called Tabletop Wizards. Nice to have you here, Alex.
Thank you. I appreciate it, guys.
Yeah. And then finally, Eric, from the renowned Eric's Hobby Workshop, is here as well. Nice to have you, Eric.
Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
Yeah, now really excited. We recently took part in this Mordheim event in Houston, Texas, and thought it would be fun to get some people together to just chat about how it went. And we actually, I think it was 2 episodes ago, actually had you, Bill, on to sort of talk about sort of the genesis of the event, which I guess people could go back and listen to. But just for sake of completeness, Bill, would you mind just giving a sort of brief summary what Mordheim 2022 was?
Yeah, so Mordheim 2022 was a narrative-driven event that was done over about 7 or 8 months, where I just kind of scoured the internet and found hobbyists from all over the world and asked them if they wanted to participate in the event that we were holding in Houston. And it was the narrative theme was searching for the lost Count, Count Steinhardt of the province of Ostermark, and how he had originally been thought dead, and in fact the opposite was true, and he was kind of lurking in the city of Mordheim. So to give a kind of a compelling reason for people to enter back in after 22 years after the comet struck.
Maybe they never left.
Yeah.
Well, I always wondered, like, would there still be Weirdstone to get after 22 years looking for it?
I mean, they're probably just fighting over the caches that
You
were
really got to
found.
dig.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
you
the
really got to
Skaven-
search.
The Skaven were all but exterminated, apparently, so I don't know.
Yeah, none of them were there. Yeah, but yeah, so yeah, got together and played a whole series of games of Mordheim, kind of with all the core warbands from the base book, and yeah, spent a couple months putting together warbands and chatting about it before the actual event. But maybe as just a first question out to everybody, was this one of like your first times attending like sort of a small narrative kind of hobby focused event, so unlike a tournament or something like that? And if so, like, what did you think of it? Was it what you expected?
Maybe who wants to chat first?
I mean, I guess I'll take charge. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was my first time attending a narrative hobby event focused towards like a specific game. And it was so much more than I expected it to be. It was so passionate in the best way, and everyone was very accommodating and friendly. And the gameplay itself was fun and driven. Yeah, it was wonderful. I mean, I was blown away by the experience, to put it lightly.
Yeah, I can go next. I thought it was awesome. I mean, I'm not sure.
Was it was everything I kind of expected and hoped it was going to be. It kind of went by in a blur, kind of like my wedding day did, you know. And my wife was even like, you know, she even cautioned me, and she's like, you know, you need to take a moment to kind of walk around the room every now and then and soak it in. And,
was that at the wedding or the event?
At the event, definitely.
Only kidding.
Yeah, and so it was nice to I only remember to do that, I think, like in the middle of my first game with Adam, where I like walked around, like took a video and stuff, and then after that I just kind of had my head down, was rolling dice. It was everything I kind of expected and hoped it was going to be. Some regrets, but I can talk about those later. It was absolutely incredible.
Yeah, I'm not sure what I expected, but it definitely was very fulfilling in terms of. I was a little bit intimidated, to be honest, because you know a lot of the guys attending are, you know, really serious hobbyists that produce work at a really high level, and I was kind of worried that I would. You know, that I would have the ugliest warband, and that I would be, you know, I'm kind of a chronically silly person too, and I thought maybe the tone wouldn't be there, but everybody was just having a great time, and that was a really pleasant surprise that just like for lack of a better term, I mean the vibes were impeccable. I mean everybody was.
Yeah.
It was really cool, and I'm also a very visual person. So like I when I'm picturing something in my head, like the reality is always different for like visual reasons. Like one of the things that like kind of threw me off when we went in there was the bar still had the Halloween decorations up. I wasn't expecting that, and I was like, "Oh, okay, we're doing this." Like,
yeah.
Dude, I swear to God, there was like 15 seconds. I was like, "Is this Mordheim themed?" And then I was like, "No, that's the old Halloween decorations."
It's
It's
like
not
cobwebs and
far
stuff.
off.
No,
gravestones.
It's pretty close.
That's
pretty
funny.
close.
Yeah, no, I thought it was wonderful as well, and I think it was sort of touched on, but I think these sorts of things can always be a bit intimidating and challenging because in a lot of cases, particularly for something like Mordheim, which is still a very like cult classic game, but ultimately not that many people are playing it. Like you can't just waltz into your local hobby store and like have a pickup game unless like you bring all the warbands and terrain and stuff. So because of that, even though a lot of people still play it and love it, like they're kind of all over the place, all over the world and so forth. So if you want to do a compelling event like this, you kind of do have to pull people from all over, many of which probably haven't met each other before. And maybe there is some Discord groups and things that can help, but it's still a bit intimidating because, you don't know what they're like, how intense they are, how much they're focused on like rules or not at all. Do they know the rules? Like, and all that can be difficult and intimidating. But I think in general, at least my experience with this sort of like style of gaming, it always goes quite well just because everyone is just excited to be there, have a good time, look at the models that they've been kind of seeing from afar on the internet and just enjoy the campy weird things that can be thrown at you due to the game. And I think that happened, so I was happy about that.
Totally. I think I was a little bit spoiled before this because I've played a Mordheim campaign before
Okay.
at my hobby store that was in Brooklyn when I lived in Brooklyn, the Brooklyn Strategist. And so I would just throw out there, if any of you out there have a Necromunda group, which I think is a little bit more common today because it's still a supported game. The Necromunda is a great gateway drug to Mordheim. If you have a group of people who are interested in Necromunda, you might be able to persuade them to start a Mordheim campaign because it's similar but in a different vein. And that's kind of my arc into getting into playing Mordheim was through the Necromunda group at this local hobby store. But I mean, that's New York City, right? It's a huge population, and you can find anything in New York City. It's kind of notorious for that. So I was a little bit spoiled in that sense, and it was just really great to get together with a bunch of people who wanted to play, and not only play, but like super into just the experience of it, the visual aspect, the narrative aspect.
Yeah, I think something about people coming from all over and like sort of really focusing on like trying to get everything perfect and create the most interesting warband as possible and so forth is something that is like these events are good for that because it's not just like, oh yeah, every week I'm going to go Saturday, play a game or whatever. It's you have a couple months that you're all like focusing, trying to build up to it. And that I think is kind of a cool thing to have something that you can work towards. But yeah, so that's exciting. And I think, as you also suggested, Necromunda would be a great game to do kind of a similar thing as well, to come up with a little narrative arc and have people create warbands to engage around that and just see what crazy stuff people can come up with. So yeah. So that's good. I guess maybe we could step back and say like what warbands people are actually using. I guess Eric, what were you using for the event?
I was using my Stallion warband, which I was the rules of the tournament were that you had to use one of the original warbands, and there are 3 flavors of human mercenaries, and I chose Marienburgers as sort of the proxy for my stallions. The stallions, if you don't know out there, are sort of the Warhammer version of Spain, and so they have a conquistador sort of flavor to them. And I named them all. I painted them up, and that's half the fun. Is the characters that you imagine for the minis, and then the way that the narrative in the game adds to the character, and you know the actions sort of come out randomly. And you go, oh, of course this guy fell, you know, classic, you know. So that's part of the enjoyment for me, is seeing the stories of the individual characters in your warband told, and you know, one guy losing an eye or whatever, and
doesn't need that eye. No, I think the game is sort of renowned for that, the ability to kind of tell these sort of personal stories about the weird things that happen to your warband is quite fun. I guess it's maybe worth noting you actually have a video up on your YouTube channel kind of talking a bit about some of the lore and talking about the different members. So I would encourage people to go and listen to that to get a bit more context on that, particularly if you're not as familiar with the old world, which I guess is probably more and more common now since Age of Sigmar has been around for a while. Well, one last thing. Did you do okay? Did your warband do okay?
Not bad. 3-2. We went 3-2, so that's a winning record, and I'll take it. You know, and
you didn't even have Reichlanders with the increased ballistic skill. That's pretty
no, I
impressive.
didn't. But I had the extra gold to spend, so I had a lot of bodies, which was helpful. But while you're on the subject of plugging my channel, by the time this goes live, apart from the live stream, I will also have a second video about the tournament, so you can check that out as well.
Yeah, it's exciting. Alex, how about you? What were you running?
Well, I think throughout the 6 months leading up to the event, I was ready to attend with every iteration of the original 6 warbands. My whole thing from the get-go was I'm going to play whatever we have the least representation of. And everybody else was in ebbs and flows. And so at one point I was playing Witch Hunters, and then I was going to play Skaven. And I ended up playing Sisters, but that was before I knew Adam was also playing Sisters. Or maybe I knew, but I thought it was still underrepresented. And then we got to the event itself, and there were no Skaven, and I was like, damn it, I should have played Skaven. Because my whole thing was I didn't care. I just wanted to be there, and I knew I was going to have fun no matter what. I wanted to play whatever there was the least of. With that being said, I played Sisters of Sigmar. And my Sisters of Sigmar, the whole kind of concept for the warband was that they took in a waif child boy into the sisterhood. And my sister, the Mordheim lore says that there's 12 sisters that sit on the council that make up the city of Mordheim. And my sister was expelled from that council for taking in a boy into the matriarchal society. For his second sight ability as an augur, they believed so strongly in him that they were willing to put their position among the order in at risk, and so they got kicked out, and that was the thesis for my warband. My warband performed great. I didn't perform great, but the warband was great. In other words, I think they did everything they needed to do, and poor strategy on my part got them killed.
Who won when we battled? Who won again? I don't remember.
Yeah. We played John's. My final match of the tournament was John's block fort build, and it was me against Eric in a 1v1, and he set his Elf Ranger on a high part of the block, and he just sniped down my novices one at a time. Which actually, did you watch my video, Eric? I specifically say I got sniped to oblivion because Eric outsmarted me. I own up to it. My sisters
they have no place in Mordheim.
Well, so true. But part of my problem was that I rolled we had a certain amount of allocated XP that we could we could put out into whatever heroes we wanted leading into the event.
Mm-hmm.
I dumped all 20 into my augur, which was extremely risky, but paid off in some regards. Like, it was just this beefy hero. But I also rolled deep wounds on him, so he missed and I got D3. I rolled a 3. I rolled a 6, so he missed 3 games right from the get-go. So I only got to play 2 matches, and he was amazing. But I think it cost me like the bulk of the event. Like I didn't get the extra exploration, and you think the extra exploration in terms of an augur really means 2 extra exploration rolls.
They're good at that.
And because it was my 20 XP, like all 20 XP character, I probably gave myself sort of like an Achilles heel sort of wound for the entire the entire event.
I think the sisters.
But this was my first time playing sisters ever. Like, I had never played them prior to this event, and I love them now. Like, when I get some games going at home again, I'm probably gonna do a new rehash of that same warband. Love them. Absolutely love them now.
They're cool. I think I think they are a little hard to play. Like, a lot of their stuff's a little expensive, and they don't really have a lot of ranged attacks. So depending on who you're playing against and the terrain, it can be tough. Like, I mean, I was you mentioned I was the other person playing Sisters of Sigmar, and I lost every game that I played. A lot of that was due. Yeah, but due to
how many steel whips did you have?
I had no steel whips.
How many
slings? Every single one of my novices, and I think every single one of my novices, and I was rolling like 5 novices deep for every single match. All were equipped with whips, and whips, even after the update, whips are so broken. They're so good. It's like a spear, but better because it can't get parried, and you get the extra attack on both the charge and I forgot how it reads, but it's just better than a spear, and they're amazing.
Yeah, okay.
Whips are so good.
I didn't get any of those. I got no slings because I felt that seemed stupid, and none of the whips. So it was very much just a thematic warband because like they pretty much all had the expensive Sigmarite warhammers. Like, some of them, I actually bought the armor they were wearing, which is obviously probably not a good idea in Mordheim because the armor's awful. But it didn't really matter.
Well, Alex, the boy that they were bringing into the fold, is he like the Kwisatz Haderach? Maybe I'm butchering that as a Dune reference.
No, it was my it was my terrible rehash of Anakin Skywalker. The boy shall not be trained, and they were like, we will train the boy. No, it's funny you mentioned the no slings though, because I also felt guilty taking slings, just knowing the reputation that Sisters and Skaven have for like sling spamming. I also took only slings on my heroes, and I really didn't use them. So that was probably a bad choice for both of us.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah. I will say there were some awful rolls on my part and some really bad mishaps with the like expanded critical damage tables and stuff. Wild shit can happen with that, and black powder weapons and stuff. Like, my god. But so, and I mean that I think that's just part of the fun of Mordheim. So, Bill, what warband did you take and field in the battle? I'm pretty sure they were some mercenaries. I fought them.
Yeah, I had mercenaries because I had a story behind my guys, and I chose them because I wanted them to be, I found them obviously like some of the more relatable warbands, and my hobbying skills aren't really like up to speed for like modeling like the cult or the possessed or anything like that.
You can't relate to Ratman? Shame. Nah, but yeah, continue.
So the Yeah, so I just wanted a warband that I could really kind of field and give throughout the last couple newsletters, writing the story and the fiction behind them as to why they're going in, for someone to be able to relate to them easier, and for ease of modeling too. It just had all these 3D printed parts laying around and kind of how to figure them out, and was my first time green stuff sculpting. So as the theme behind them was that they were deserters from a battle in the Vampire Wars, and they were out for revenge against the Count of Stirling, and they ended up getting captured, and then basically kind of, I wouldn't say expendables. I guess that is the plotline of the Expendables, right?
Yeah, sort of.
Yeah, so they have their homes taken, I guess taken ransom, I guess you could say, with their families, and they have to go in and find the lost Count. Because I wanted to tie in a reason as to why are people still going back to Mordheim 22 years later. And I think what some people forget about is that there is a whole wide world around the city, and there are reasons in the world why these warbands are going in. And so I really wanted to kind of tie in politically and the machinations of other outside powers. Why are they still going in? And there's a whole Empire Civil War going on.
Yeah.
How is that? How can that give one side the advantage over the other, to kind of heal the empire, so to speak?
I mean, there's the Star Child and
all sorts of stuff. Yeah, well, that's cool. Yeah, nice to kind of try to put it in context within the old world and such. Like that's fun. I guess towards that end, I was playing an undead warband, and this was sort of the concept behind it was that was supposed to be looking at anyone living or had caught within the city and how, like, staying a long time there, how they might sort of get mutated and change with all the Weirdstone exposure. So I have a lot of like kind of spectral ghosts and such, a really messed up mutated vampire that is partially invisible and would only kind of be seen when it like was ripping people apart, and some weird stuff like that. And they did actually pretty well. I guess I lost my first game against Tom's Cult of the Possessed, but then ended up winning all the rest I played, primarily just because my vampire was pretty powerful and just tore other warriors and stuff apart. But yeah, so it went pretty well for me.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. Did you guys not start with the Wild Hunt on that first game?
Oh yeah, it did, and it like immediately turned towards me and obliterated one of my dire wolves.
There you go. Well, there you go. Yeah, that didn't help.
And then the first thing that then after that, like I got the first charge against his one little mutant, and I guess it had some mutation that it had spikes that would like cause like a strength 1 hit or something.
Yeah.
And
automatically.
I charged. The direwolf was killed by the brambles. So like it was kind of a comedy of unlikely events that ultimately led to me losing, but it was pretty funny. And yeah, it was fun. Greg, what about your warband? So I didn't build or paint a warband because I mean I haven't built or painted anything in years, which is mainly due to obsessive compulsive disorder and not doing any hobby related stuff. But in the Mordheim 2019 event, Anna of Gardens of Hecate built a Witch Hunter warband for me to use. So she very kindly did that, and then at the end she gifted me some of those models, which I used again for this event, that were then supplemented by some Warcry miniatures that we commissioned Anna to paint. And the idea for this was the old Witch Hunter warband from that 2019 event. Most of them got killed, and as they are, as one does, as one should. And now
when playing Wartime,
now they're more crazed to think that if Sigmar originally saw fit to punish the original inhabitants of Mordheim, now 22 some years later, things are still bad. Now this witch hunter warband has decided they just want to exterminate all life in Mordheim. So
That was one of the coolest things for me about this event, is seeing a lot of these miniatures in person, because I've seen a lot of the people who attended, I've seen their work on Instagram before and stuff. But then to actually see them in person, first of all, they look incredible, and a lot of them look better in person even than than when you've taken a really nice photo on Instagram. But there's also something nice about it. It almost makes it seem attainable when you see it in real life, and you're like, oh, okay, like, like maybe on Instagram, like certain things have like a luminance or a saturation that you think, oh, I'm not sure if I could attain that. And then you see it in person, and you're like, okay, I have actually done something similar to that approaches that, and it starts to sort of connect the pieces, and it makes it feel all more attainable and realistic. Like what made me think about it is I followed Gardens of Hecate for a long time. And then looking at your warband, it was incredible in person. Like they all the little tattoo details, like all the guys have like tribal tattoos, and they're just like exquisite, like intricate little designs all over, and you can just kind of drink it all in and turn it in your hand at your own speed. And that's the way to appreciate a miniature, you know what I mean, is in person. And so just for the sake of getting together with all these miniatures, like I remember in our Airbnb, I was looking at Tom's warband with the Carnival of Chaos, and he's got that beautiful ogre with the severed head on the hobby horse, and just looking at the freehand on his thigh, where he did like the flag pattern, like that was worth the trip down to Houston just for that, just to look at that miniature in person,
And the little playing cards that were staked to him, like really cool. Yeah, I think that's fun that you mentioned that, like, because, I mean, the models, like, they are, like, little sculptures, and I feel like the best sculptures are, like, ones that when you see it, like, you're kind of, like, you have to turn it around, you have to look at other angles to see it, and I feel, in this case, being able to see these models that you've looked over on Instagram and such, to actually hold them in your hand and actually see all these angles is really, really great. And also, I feel, even though like you're looking on your phone and so forth, like the pictures are pretty small, they're still usually kind of magnified or blown up. So when you actually see them in person, you just remember like, wow, these miniatures are still so small. And to get that detail and passion and the tattoos, like you're saying, and so forth, like it's just so cool, and it's so inspiring.
Yeah, how cool is that our hobby is essentially we're sculpture collectors,
Yeah.
And like 100 years ago, if you want to be a sculpture collector, you had to own like 30 factories or something, and then you'd have a little sculpture garden of like big marble sculptures, or I guess like Frederick Remington and stuff like that. You can get like some, but they're still very expensive, very hard to collect. There's a lot of limits on how many you can collect, but you can own like have a large collection of sculptures in miniature as a pretty reasonable hobby.
Well, I guess to say one more thing about the warband, so since most of the original warband died in the 2019 event, as I said, I had it that they were hiring like a feral warband of like feral humans that they found somewhere outside the outskirts of Mordheim, which admittedly I don't really know the lore of what's outside Mordheim, so perhaps.
Or I mean, maybe they were found inside Mordheim too, and they just went nuts and crazy. Who knows? They found them and they recruited them to exterminate all life.
And it was one of the Warhammer Age of Sigmar Warcry warbands, is some
the Untamed Beast, I think they were called.
Yeah. How could anyone know?
Yeah.
So the feral humans were those gnome-like characters that you had? I really liked those guys.
Those were some of the original witch hunters. So
yeah,
sort of
with
like
the hood, and then the beard that comes out.
Yeah.
That's a great look. A really
like
clever
kind of
design.
a sinister, unreadable, unknowable look to them.
Yeah, so when Anna created warbands for Mordheim 2019, she made a possessed warband that was a bunch of crazy naked dudes.
Mhm.
That she wanted them to look like unhinged and unknowable and kind of crazy. But then she also wanted for the Witch Hunter warband, she didn't want to make them look like good guys because they're also crazed zealots in their own sense. So she gave all of them the like pointed hoods, like now
Can't see their faces.
yeah, so like they're not good people either.
No.
Yeah. And a lot of her models too, she like cares a lot about scale and such, and I think a lot of the ones she will build will be from like more historical, like Perry miniatures and so forth, which I mean, I certainly like that. Scale is cool, is important to keep in mind. But yeah, no, so yeah, a whole bunch of cool war bands. We're now that we've sort of talked about just some of the war bands and stuff, were there any standout events in any of the games that you played that was like kind of crazy, unexpected, or funny? Or like I mentioned the one that, yeah, like the first real thing I did was charge into a mutant and die. It seemed like it really encapsulated, like, ah, yes, I'm back in Mordheim.
So I have one. In my last game, my matriarch charged like some hero with 2 black powder pistols, and they eventually end up getting a crit. I think she inflicted 1 wound on them, and they had 2 wounds, and then they struck back, got a critical hit with their black powder weapon, and that like knocked her out. And that critical hit was a ricochet that ricocheted and got another critical hit on one of my other sister superiors, and then she also died. So, like, complete disaster, and it was bad.
Yeah, that's fun.
Yeah.
And I guess it's nice in a situation like this that is so devoid of like kind of tournament winning,
Yeah,
that like
whatever.
you can just sort of bask in that, like, how did this shit happen, and just kind of laugh it off and enjoy like trying to craft this into a sort of a thesis for just the war band. Whereas like if you were trying to like win a tournament, like that would be like real feel bad experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a great moment in my second match against Mark where I had my stallions on the ship that I brought, and it was on that dock board, which is if anyone's watching, this ship right here. And one of my guys, I deployed one of my guys on the back, and there was some low docks sort of right below. And I could have deployed him in a more reasonable spot, but instead I deployed him up there, and I was like, okay, whatever. He'll try to climb down. And he failed his test. He fell and he died. It was like the first move in the first turn. And he just I presumably slipped and fell into the water
and drowned.
And just permanently died just as the first move. Mark and I were just dying laughing. Like
that's more time.
It was just such a fun start to the match.
That's great.
Yeah. In my first game, I was playing my witch hunters against a cult of possessed, and a bunch of big. What are the mutated
possessed?
Like, yeah, okay, the
possessed. Yeah.
Like 2 possessed charged in and knocked a whole bunch of my guys down, which then were just immediately taken out of action because they were knocked down. And at the end of the game, I think it was at least 5 of my warriors just permanently died. I rolled so poorly that almost half of my warband permanently died. That's good times. Good times there. Yeah.
Wow. That's rough.
How about Bill? Anything stand out to you? I know one of the games I played against you was funny. One of your warriors like tried to step down onto the road and fell and died. Like falling is really vicious in Mordheim.
Yeah, I got like 3 small ones. Like one was that in our game, and it was like just high enough where I had to make a roll. I think it was like 15/16 of an inch or something like that. And then it's
It's
kind of
enough
like
to kill him.
yeah, because like you always hear stories of people like, oh, I just stepped down off the curb on the street and I broke my foot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's kind of how I imagine that happened with that guy. He just wasn't taking his calcium supplements.
Yeah, it wasn't his day.
Yeah.
I watched you guys know Lindy Beige, he does some history videos, and one of the things he talks about, because he's also a LARPer, is he talks about footwear and how in medieval times they didn't have rubber-soled shoes. So you could wear sort of a smooth leather bottom shoe, in which case you have bad traction on like mud and grass, or you could wear hobnail boots and have great traction on mud and grass, but no traction on cobbles. So it kind of makes sense that in a ruined city there'd be all kinds of situations where you just have poor footing. Not to mention things collapsing underneath you. And so I it's thematic and very appropriate that falling is such a good part of the game.
That's funny. Yeah, that's good. That's good.
I think another like small one outside of like the wizard duel in the tower, which was to be fair, like I had no idea Jimmy's Magister was like a foot away because the tower was blocking, so I thought I was being all clever and stuff, but like teleporting my guy in. And then when Jimmy like moved his model, and I was like, "Wait, where'd that guy come from?" He's like, "Yeah, he's been on the other side the whole time." I was like, "Oh shit, man!" Like I was busy like talking to Eric or like taking pictures and stuff.
Yeah. Well,
it'll be fine.
You're the one who booked it at a bar, man. You really notice like one or two beers actually does make you significantly less intelligent than the general sometimes. And you get sort of tunnel vision and you're like, oh, here's what I'm gonna do, and then it's like, oh wait, your guy's right there.
But it definitely made me more like 3 or 4 margaritas definitely made me more ballsy, I will say that.
It's a good way to
play. To the wind.
But like the last one, probably like my favorite, I laughed so hard, it was the very first game I was playing against Adam. And then there was like this big lull in silence. And like if you've ever said something like at a louder volume than you meant to, because you're in a large crowd and all of a sudden it goes quiet and you speak louder than you meant to. It was, I think, Eric, when you were getting attacked by those spines or whatever, all of a sudden everyone stopped talking at the same time, and you said out loud, "Well, that's not fucking good."
Yeah, that's good times.
That's right.
The best of times.
It was probably okay.
Yeah, it was. It was fine. What's a couple dire wolves? They can't get experience anyway. They're just chaff for the mill.
Yeah.
Alex,
what about you, Alex? Have you anything stand out
aside from your augur not playing most of the games?
I mean, I think my second match against Greg in the sewers, I was so worried about those tentacle monsters. And then I ended up having this experience where the tentacle monsters completely ignored me and just had a weird anime moment with Greg's witch hunters. and my sisters were probably subjugated to watching something they didn't want to see. But it afforded me the victory, and that was kind of like a fun moment by a third party standpoint. Just watching as these tentacles popped out of the water and just took advantage of Greg's witch hunters.
I'm glad I'm not that guy. Jeez.
I didn't do it.
Yeah.
That's another really fun thing about doing a weekend of gaming is like sometimes when I'm just playing a game like infrequently, I don't want to do special scenarios. I don't want to do like a different format because it's just like I just want to have my guys out there, I don't want anything else getting involved. Like it seems complicated, but when you're playing like 5 games in a weekend, you're like, sure, bring out the tentacle monsters. Let's do this special scenario where I got to get off the table edge, whatever. It makes it a lot more like loose because each match, I mean, there are stakes because of the way that warbands evolve and get damage and experience and stuff, but it feels like you're more willing to have a match that's just kind of loose and you're willing to try new things. And that to me was like one of the things that stuck with me.
To be fair, I think that system would have worked really well. Like Greg was just incredibly unlucky. I think what was it, roll a 1 if you finish within an inch of the water, and he like exclusively got 1s. It would have been fine if his dice weren't loaded in my favor. It would have been fine.
Yeah, it was okay.
Well, there are also like the random like occurrences that you can play with, and I know in my game against Jimmy we did that, and eventually about halfway through it, turns out the city they were fighting on was booby trapped, and then just every so often there was a chance one of your characters could run into a booby trap or something. So it's like, I think including some of that stuff, they often don't have a huge effect on like the outcome of the game, but they can add a lot of fun narrative hooks and stuff that you wouldn't have necessarily thought of, but can end up being very cool and memorable. Like I know I for the most part did terribly throughout the whole event. One of my sisters, I had modeled her with an eye patch and like these horrible burn scars across her face and such. And throughout the course of all the games, in the first game against you, Bill, she lost one of her eyes. Then she became horribly scarred, so she like caused fear. And then eventually she became hardened, so she like didn't fear anything. So it was kind of very thematic and fit very well with kind of some of the things that I was like envisioning for certain characters and stuff. So I think based on how the game was designed and some of like the exploration phases and all of that, there's a lot of stuff built into it that can kind of, even if you're not really trying, add a lot of like narrative elements and get you thinking about different things, which I think ultimately is really engaging and really fun.
Yeah, I agree. I guess to touch a little more on Eric, what you were saying about it's nice about sort of these like kind of weekend of gaming, like pushing you to try different scenarios and stuff. I think that's a really good point because at least I know now I don't play many games of anything. And if I do, it's just like, oh, going over to a friend's house, gonna like play a game, maybe two. But then there's always these sort of life constraints like, oh, what time is it? Like, I can maybe finish this game, but oh, it's a little bit later than I wanted to. I need to be leaving or all these things. But I feel when you like have set aside a couple days for something like this, you can focus so much more on just enjoying the games, enjoying these moments and such without all of that concern about like, oh, well, like, what do I need to like, what's this errand I need to run or whatnot. And I think that it's just easier to get kind of lost in the chaos and fun of the games, which is just nice. It's something that I guess I don't feel like I experience that often. And it's really, really nice to get that opportunity.
Yeah, it's a lot more satisfying to have a short game, even. Like, sometimes, like, if you set aside an afternoon on a Sunday to play a game and it's, like, really clear who's winning after turn 2, you're kind of like, oh, you know? Like, it's a little bit disappointing. Like, well, should we keep playing? Like, yeah, let's keep playing. Like, but, you know, when it's in the context of there's more games coming, then all good, you know?
And that's so true because when I play with the friends at home, I'm like always hyper paranoid that if we want to do multiple games, I'm like, if I really kick the crap out of them for like 2 or 3 games, are they gonna want to play a 4th game? I going into the weekend, I was like, man, I have these guys locked in. It doesn't matter what happens; they're here, they're committed. I was like, I got you now. I got you for at least 5 games.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. When I got to the Airbnb when I first arrived, Alex took my passport from me and said, "You're not leaving until we've done a certain amount of games."
This is true. Yeah.
That's fun. Maybe shifting gears slightly, like was there something that like if you were kind of gonna do something like this again, that you do differently, or something that maybe you regretted and would change? I guess, and to start that off, I'll mention something that sticks in my mind. this is like I've recently started to try to get a little bit more into photography, like with like a mirrorless camera and not just solely relying on my phone. So like I lugged the camera on an airplane and all that stuff. And it was fun to actually try to take some nicer photos. But like I foolishly did not bring like an external flash along just because it's like, it's kind of big. I don't want to carry it or whatever. But like, damn, it would have helped a lot because even though like it was kind of in like a bar that not every place had the best lighting, but thankfully the one room had like lots, like it was all windows, so it helped a lot. But still, without like traditional cameras don't have all the computational photography stuff that phones have that will like average together a lot of photos to try to deal with the fact of poor lighting and such. I would have been able to get, I feel, a lot more like better images if I just had an external flash. So I that was something that if I would do it again, I would have made space in my bag to have an external flash to like better capture some of the stuff. But you live, you learn. Is what it is. And I still think I got some cool photos, so it happens.
Yeah, I think lighting was a big thing for me as well, as I took a bunch of really bad pictures. Either they're like really brightly backlit or whatever, and the bar was great in a lot of ways, but there were certain tables that didn't have great light sometimes, and then trying to take photos of that. And even another thing that was kind of a takeaway is there was some like gorgeous warbands that were like really grimdark. And then once there's low light and on a grimdark table, it's like, where the hell are the minis? So, and like to me, that's kind of like highlighted like a justification for having a bit more of a flamboyant color scheme for the warband, and even punching up the saturation, even if you're going to go the grimdark route, because you do want them to pop against the table a little bit, just for a practicality perspective.
That's true.
It makes a better photo sometimes too, I think.
No, that is
but
true.
No, it got me thinking about like what an ideal venue for something like this would be, and it would be so cool if there were like, sort of controlled backdrops as well. Because a lot of like my photos, I'm like, oh, this is so cool, and I'm just looking at the table, and then the photo has like, neon bar lights in the background, and there's like all these people, and it's like, oh yeah, it's not. Like I'm gonna share this photo, and I feel like it kind of like sells it short. Like you have to be there and have the tunnel vision to fully appreciate it. So it's like it didn't take away from the gameplay, but like from a like almost like a marketing perspective or something, you would want like like a very sort of Spartan venue to really let the tables themselves sort of dominate the visual landscape, I guess.
We need an abandoned warehouse with exposed brick for the background.
Oh yeah, like a vault, like under like an old
there you
cathedral or something.
Yeah,
With good lighting, of course.
a ruined Scottish castle.
But it also had to be catered. You would have to have food. Be like, so I feel it's one of those things that like you're never gonna really have the perfect venue. Like I think in this case, it was a really nice venue because you could get a drink, like, and it was even kind of fun that like people would kind of stop in some like throughout the days and it's like hey, what's going on here, like wow, this is incredible. And it's just kind of fun to expose people to it. And like some were even like, oh, I used to play Warhammer back in the day, and like that in itself was sort of fun that you wouldn't get if it was like in a sterile like hall or something. So like I think there's always going to be pluses and minuses. And like I think ultimately it was a great place to have it. I should have prepared for it better myself ultimately. So a comment on Eric, what you were saying about like the backdrop, some kind of like sometimes like not being good for the pictures. I know Anna from Gardens of Hecate will, for a lot of her like battle report stuff, they'll play the game, she'll take detailed notes of what happened, and then afterwards she'll reset up the models and take better pictures.
That makes sense. It makes sense to do that. You know, you can't do it when somebody takes their warband and then goes to another country. With
Yeah.
it.
But, I mean,
yeah, no, that
it wouldn't have worked quite well for this, but like,
to go back to what Eric was saying, that really proves the universal appeal of a beautiful table of terrain. Is how many people came by just to like look with their jaw dropped at the tables. And like, you know, people who were just stopping in for a beer or going to the comedy show upstairs, and they were like, "Oh my God, can I take a picture? Like, oh, this is incredible!" You know, people were, you know, just drawn into it. It really does have a universal appeal, and that's I think that's why I think it's worth it to put in all the attention to detail that Bill did when building these tables, and for Alex to go through the trouble of shipping that big table down. Like, it just enriches the experience so much to have a gorgeous table to play on that it lets your imagination rest a little bit. You don't have to fill in everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like, there's so much done for you by somebody with a really good artistic vision that then you can, like, you're going to jump off from your imagination and fill in a bunch of it in. And the higher that you can get, the further you can jump, so to speak, you know?
Yeah, and I know certainly in this hobby, like, it can be very easy to focus on just the next coolest miniature and such, and sometimes forget about like how much the terrain adds, but then how much you have to be careful. Like, you want to make the most detailed and best terrain as possible, but you don't want it to detract from the miniatures, like you were saying earlier. So like, there's a lot of kind of back and forth balance there that can be difficult, but yeah, you really know when it's good. And these sorts of events, it is pretty spectacular to have that opportunity to like play on some of these boards and see different people's style of terrain, like how they approached it. Like, oh, I 3D printed this, or I bought this, or like I hand created. Like, on all that is pretty fun and just neat to see people's techniques, and honestly also just have the opportunity to chat with them about it. Like, what were you thinking here? How did you go about this? And like, sure, maybe you could get some of that through Instagram or something, but it's not the same. Like, you don't have the context. You can't ask follow-up questions as easily. So yeah, just a great opportunity.
I think one of my regrets is well, one last thing to touch on that was it's kind of like model trains. Like, I've never met anyone who's like, model trains are fucking stupid to look at. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of the same thing with terrain boards, where like, no matter who you are, it's something that's aesthetically pleasing to look at.
Yeah.
You know, from whatever walk of life, no one's going to come in, take a look at a Mordheim Invitational and be like, yeah, that's fucking dumb. But that looks stupid.
You know, I think Warhammers are generations of model trains.
Yeah.
I mean, I did hear nerd about 10 times throughout the weekend. You know, just kind of casually thrown our way. Nerds. I heard that a few times. But then, to your point, Bill, like, after them saying nerd, they'd be like, it is pretty cool looking.
Yeah.
Like, they would give up that little bit of ground after throwing the taunt. They'd be like, nerds, but it's kind of cool. Yeah.
I got wedgied a few times walking in the bar.
I'm just in perpetual wedgie. Yeah.
But one of the regrets I did have was honestly, like, not really, I guess, soaking it in more, like kind of getting lost and playing the game, which ultimately is the point of the Invitational, right? Is to play games and tell stories. You know, kind of some of the stories we've all been talking about. But I think lighting is another issue too. I think Eric, like, after, I think it was like the first night, you were like, damn, like, should have thought to bring some like backdrop lights and stuff like that. Because that back room was like just awful to take pictures in, the second half of the bar.
Yeah.
The funny, they had those like little spotlights on a swivel, and we turned them to point them at the tables, and they turned them back. They turned them back to point at like the empty area by the dartboards that nobody was using because we were using the whole room. And they're like, don't move the lights. And it's like, what do you mean, don't move the lights? Like, that's the point.
They're made easy for.
It was still a really good venue. Like, the food was really good too. and it was like
the food was really good.
Yeah, it was a good venue. It was a good.
It was like very good. Yeah.
And in some sense, the sort of darker, I mean, it was a good atmosphere for playing the games too. It's just like the documentation was harder, but
yeah, I mean, it was like wood walls. You're sitting there with like a tankard of ale. It was good.
But I kind of regret like not lining up everyone's warbands and like taking individual shots. So big shout out to you, Eric, for for getting them. For actually
tried to. I could have had a more professional situation for filming for sure, and I would have liked to interview people a little bit. I should have brought some lav mics, and we could have done a little bit more that way. But I also I didn't know any of you guys in advance. I didn't know you guys. I didn't want to come into a bunch of strangers and start pointing cameras in their faces and stuff like that. And like,
which is exactly what I did.
No, but it was cool. Like I started pointing cameras in people's faces once I realized everyone was okay with it and that everyone was comfortable. We were all having a good time. But I should have. I
mean, it's hard to
plan
judge.
that a little better.
It's hard to judge, in particular.
There's not enough time in the day, too.
Yeah, and I mean,
definitely.
We've been to a few similar events, but even with that, it's still only a handful of them. So you never really know what to expect going into any of them.
The venue's always different. Who's there is sometimes different, and then also just traveling, like you have to make choices on like what you're bringing and so forth, and so it's always hard, and like it's like time flies by. Like it's like I felt the time was super filled up doing it. I was always having a good time and enjoying, but like you kind of wish like you had that extra time to interview some more people or take more photos. Like I think that there's always gonna be some stuff like that, but
there's a fatigue factor too. When you're making decisions all day in wargaming, I find it very, very tiring, like surprisingly so. Because it's one like you want to play loose and everything, but everything's like a decision, and then you have 2 beers, and then you have a heavy lunch, and then you go out for a heavy dinner, and it's like, okay, I'm tired. I'm really tired. I mean, like in a good way, like.
Yeah, but I don't want to, like, at the end of the day, try to set up, like, the optimal lighting to take all these professional warband photos.
Exactly.
Exactly. They're cool and all, but god damn, I don't need that now. I need some sleep so I can focus on destroying other warbands tomorrow.
Yeah.
Another thing that I think is a bit different, as Adam mentioned, like we've played in a few kind of somewhat similar things with like Necromunda, the Mordheim 2019, and some of that stuff. But this is the first, narrative style, hobby focused event that is actually having some like YouTube style coverage. Both like Alex, you already have a video up on Tabletop Wizards, and I guess Eric, yours is going to will be up there by the time probably people are listening to this. Was this something that you were like excited and really wanted to do? And how do you think that will affect maybe people going forward and hosting their own events?
Well, it's hard to speak for how it'll affect other people. I do think people, I've presented in my video, which is coming out tomorrow, so probably will be live when this comes live. I've presented it as what it was, which is a really good time. And I think, if people take anything away from it, then it'll probably be a positive thing. So I'd like to think that people are going to want to, do something similar. That's kind of, I encourage people to. I definitely, I do feel like this one is a lot more accessible to people outside the event. Like Mordheim 2019, I was aware of it because I'm into Mordheim, but it's like I felt so left out. there weren't a lot of photos. I didn't really have a sense of like what it was like, and so I do feel like it's cool that more people can kind of be included who are interested and sort of. And I think that'll bring more people out of the woodwork who want to participate in something like this, and then that'll kind of foment just further events like this.
Yeah, I feel it's an interesting sort of problem, and I know like this is also similar with like Ink 28, that style of stuff. Like I feel you're constantly like a lot of people play Warhammer, but they're very, focused on what's the newest codex, what's the best rules, this and that, and not necessarily sort of a narrative style thing. And I will feel like constantly get questions like, "Oh, what was the rule set? Like, how did you set this up?" And like I feel those questions aren't as important as just kind of the theme and just getting together for a good time. But that's sort of stuff that is hard to convey without maybe having like a video or a podcast and things like that to chat about it. And I think this will help in that way. And it is also kind of difficult too, though, that like in a lot of cases, these sort of narrative style things are like it's like a bunch of friends getting together to do something, or like in this case, Bill, you inviting a bunch of sort of like-minded people that you were pretty sure would, be excited about this, and like you can't invite the whole world to it, but you still want to be able to share it to get, people excited to show like this is something that other people can do, and like you don't have to rely on just like what is Games Workshop telling me I need to do, like what new book do I need to buy, what new models do I have to buy to be competitive, and that you can kind of, make the hobby your own thing. And yeah, I think some of this additional coverage might, help for that, and I think that's exciting.
Yeah, the more ways that people can learn about the stuff, get a sense of what people are thinking, where they're spending their time, the better. Like we've certainly on our blog and podcast have certainly tried to impart the notion that for a lot of these events, if you're interested in them, just reach out to the people hosting them, involved in them, and more often than not, they'll probably be very happy to like hear from you, hear your ideas, all of that stuff. And so I think the more avenues people have to actually read about it, watch what happened, all that, the better.
Yeah, I mean, for the Mordheim 2019 event, like Eric, your vampire model, we got Eli or Red Wet Skeleton on Instagram. He made your vampire. Nick Tregeggio from the UK, Cordal, he made some models that all of us used in our Mordheim 2019 event thing. So like people that we knew got involved with it even though they couldn't necessarily come. But it's always hard, like it's still like miniature gaming is somewhat of a niche thing. It's not like, and then this is a one step even more niche. So like it's always gonna be a little bit difficult to like, because we have a fair amount of posts and such, and like at the time it was like the center of our world and we were all like posting stuff, but like ultimately we have a pretty small audience, and like, no one looks at blogs anymore. I mean, we still update it, but no one actually looks at them. So like it's hard to maybe even find that. Whereas I think YouTube is helpful in that like it is easier to pull more people in to see it and actually see like some video and pictures and like see like what it's all about, rather than like, oh, there's a couple, here's some niche blog that I don't know if I want to visit. And like, there's a wall of text. Do I really want to read this?
Yeah, like, look at those
do I have time for
assholes. Like some of the videos and stuff, I think that we've already seen that you've been putting out and stuff. It's a lot easier to get a sense of the vibe of the event and kind of how people were and how they approached it. And I think that's a very good thing.
And to comment and maybe put down our blog posts a little bit, like when somebody goes to look at it, like Bill did today, it's like, this website isn't even secured. Like, do I even want to go to this website? I don't have money to secure these things.
No, so I think it's really interesting. I really think it's more an accessibility thing than anything else. Like, people are hyper fascinated with Mordheim if they don't play, or they're hyper fascinated with the event and they just don't know enough about it. I know Eric touched on a little bit, and I had this a very similar sort of sentiment prior to attending this event. I knew about Mordheim 2019, which you guys all attended, and I would like kind of look up some of the images or the hashtags on Instagram just because I wanted to know more about it, and there was like no information to be had aside from a few photos. And
no,
like and the blog. Yeah, your unsecured blog, and then and then Alexander's Echoes of Imperium had like posts about it, and that was it. That was it. But I was fully subscribed if I could find the information, but that was all there was. I mean, I would have dedicated more time to learning about it and reading about the warbands and like investing that time if there was an outlet, and there just wasn't an outlet.
But that was difficult.
Going into this event, when I started talking to Bill about it, I was like, man, I just want to, kind of capture this in a better way if possible, because people are going to care. And that's not like a grandiose, like, oh, we're so important. But the fact is that there's people that either A, couldn't attend that wanted to, B, didn't have the avenue to attend, or C, like they're of the type that maybe they wanted to, but a personality or a financial situation was holding them back from attending. Like either they're like hyper introverted, or they didn't have the finances to travel, or maybe both. And I cannot tell you, since putting out that video or those two videos on YouTube about the event, how many people have either DM'd me on Instagram or messaged me on YouTube saying like, thank you for documenting this. Like, this is amazing. How could I attend one of these? Like, how did you go about finding out about this? When's the next one? How can I be a part of it? Like, people are so excited about what we did. Again, I know it's amazing. I know you guys know it was amazing, but I'm not saying this for the sake of like tooting our own horns. I'm saying this because like it really is a remarkable thing to get a bunch of people together to just have like a moment of selected hobby time and nothing else. And people envy that, and they cherish that. Like, other hobbyists know how important that is. So I think that the YouTube thing, we live like, and Instagram too, I think we live in a moment where we have the ability to share that more so now than ever, and we should be, because not everybody has the luxury of going to something like this. So we have to enjoy it and share it for them.
And I think as we've sort of touched on, in a lot of cases, part of what's special is that it is rather small, a bunch of like less than 20 people really playing a lot of games, getting to know each other and so forth. And so there's something special about it being somewhat small, but by being able to share it, I think it makes it more accessible. Like, hey, I could do that. Like, I play Mordheim, and I think that is an important thing. Just exposing people that there are different ways you can enjoy the hobby that doesn't involve spending hundreds of dollars every month and so forth. And I think that is good. And I mean, admittedly, I guess this is to plug 28 magazine. That was partially started by Alex, who ran the 2019 event, and the three of us, as a way to try to expose the sort of that 28 Inc. 28 ethos, and like kind of doing what you're excited about, not getting so focused on what Games Workshop is selling, and trying to show that it can be, what you make of it and what you want the hobby to be for yourself, and make it a little bit more obtainable by other people to step behind the curtain and see what it's about and such. But it's still hard to keep up with all this stuff, and I think YouTube is a nice way to maybe show it to a wider audience of people and get people excited about an old game, but still a great one. So yeah, I'm excited to see more of it.
I wouldn't if you see more of these type of small narrative events pop up in the future, and within the next few years, we'll refer to Mr. Bill as Papa Mordheim for his the Godfather Mordheim. Yeah.
Well, because, if you're out there and you're having a narrative event, shoot me an invite. I don't know what the criteria was, Bill. Maybe you can talk about that in a bit. But one thing that I was really struck with is, like I said, I mean, I thought everybody was going to be a rules buff. I thought everybody was going to be like, this highest level of hobbyist. And a lot of us like had a basic understanding of the rules. And then when it gets into the weeds, you either just agree something with your opponent or you go, Jimmy, and because Jimmy knows all the rules so well. But everyone was super cool about that. And it's like, even if you didn't feel like your hobby skills were there, like there's maybe somebody who's got incredible warbands who can't show up, who would be happy to see their warbands there, and will lend you a warband, or you could commission a warband or something like that. And then, so if you don't need to know the rules and you don't need to be a good hobbyist, you just basically need to be a cool person who's a good sport and who's into it. And so I think that this made the whole concept of a narrative event like this feel a lot more accessible and welcoming to me, which is really cool. Because I don't know if you guys remember, and I talk a little bit about this in my video that's coming out, but in Thomas's presentation, one of the things he said at the end that I thought was really cool was he said, you guys, as experienced hobbyists, you have a duty to welcome people into the hobby. And I think that, it's kind of an ironic thing to say about an invitational event. It's like, it's an invitational, but I do think that people will see how much fun you can have by doing, just getting out there and playing and taking a risk. Like I didn't know any of you guys, and I thought that I kind of came into it with the sense that you all knew each other and I'd be the odd man out. And it wasn't like that at all. Everybody, we had so much in common and so much to talk about, and we were all there and we were all so excited that it was just like, the risk was instantly rewarded and then continuously rewarded throughout the weekend. And that's something I will hope people can take away from this is it's like, just get out there and you'll have a great time if you can, use the internet, use a bit of planning to find the right people,
And I think this was something Adam kind of mentioned, and I think Bill, like we kind of talked about it in a couple episodes back, but like you'll be amazed just reaching out to people. Like if you do see something like, hey, it looks like these people are trying to do some narrative thing, like, but it's over in the UK, I can't get there. Like just reach out to them, say like, hey, I saw you were doing this. Like, you mind if I make a couple of models, or like I have some cool ideas like for a scenario or whatever. Like, and I don't know, in general, people are excited if you're interested, to learn that someone else is interested in what they're doing. And like that's an easy way to strike up a potential friendship and maybe get invited, or like send some models and see them on these cool tables and get some cool photos. Like I feel it's a great way to just keep building the community and meet people. And like I feel that's why I'm still in the hobby, is because of like we started this blog, podcast and stuff, and it's been just such a great way to network with other people, like-minded people, and just have a good time. So like reach out to people. Like it's always maybe could be a little intimidating, like seeing all these great models or whatever, but like I don't know, I think at least my experience has always been really good, just talking with other people and reaching out. And so really encourage that.
No, that's a really good point. And like on that point, Bill, like how many people would you say, just a quick rough, like off the top of your head, how many people would you say participated in the event in some way or other that did not attend? Just for like anyone that might be listening to this that's intimidated but wants to get involved with something like this. How many people? Because I know it's a lot. That's why I'm asking you. Like, how many would you say?
I think there was about like 28 or 27 people. There was like I think 14 people that 14 of us that ultimately showed up, and about twice that. Whether that was someone making models and shipping them, writing short stories, writing
artwork
scenarios like that, artwork, definitely
Yep.
artwork.
Yep. Yeah, so to both of your points, like you could 100% be involved in something like this without actually attending, if that's what you wanted.
Yeah.
And I think it could be a way to like kind of feel like it might not be as intimidating, but just send over a couple models. And at least, I mean, for me, I have a ton of unpainted plastic sprues and stuff. Like, I'm not bothered by losing a couple models, particularly if it like make someone's day or could show up in some weird board and like do some fun stuff in a game. Like, that's a good place for them.
Yeah.
So I still have all the models I've ever had. I've never
That's
sold a model.
amazing.
Well, except for the time that my brother took some of my best painted models over to his friend's house for a D&D game and left them there. I'm still sore
They're
about that,
gone.
Stuart.
Oh.
But other than that, this past weekend, I gave a model to John because we were just talking about it, and it's like I got so much more joy from like how happy he was to have the model than I would have from having that sitting in my pile of shame, that it's making me question my whole hoarding ethos. And so I definitely think that, the like share what you have, and you'll find you actually get more enjoyment out of it. So if you're essentially selfish, the most selfish thing you can do is be unselfish.
Well, while we're on the topic of sharing, I'll take that trebuchet that you just bought from Bill. If you're looking to give away models, I'll just take that trebuchet right off your hands. The one that you just got from Bill.
What's the line from my cold dead fingers?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Well, yeah,
from my cold pewter fingers.
Yeah. So I've made lots of models that I've sent to other events and other games and other people, and yeah, I really like that. And particularly, like, we also have, since most of the models and stuff that I make, I convert and sculpt and all that, like, I have tons and tons of plastic stuff that I will never use. And so oftentimes if someone can tell me like, oh, they're looking for this, or like they're really excited to make this one thing but they need that, if I have the stuff, I'm more often than not very happy to just send them that stuff, because chances are I'm not going to use all of it.
Yeah, I feel just excitement is contagious, and like to feel involved in something bigger than yourself is it's fun, and it's just a good time.
You kind of touched on something there, Adam, that I think is a weird part about this hobby, and it's kind of like a darker sort of aspect to it. But like every so often, you'll see like a lot of miniatures appear, like an estate sale, or like somebody's passed away. And their miniatures are being passed on to other hobbyists, whether sold by their next of kin or whatever. And invariably, half of them are unbuilt, unpainted, right? And it's like, there's a concept in like of memento mori, where people used to have skulls around to remind them of their mortality. And we could play with skeletons all day and we still think that we'll get to every single model in our pile of shame. And it's like, do the math. You're not going to. So share it, be less precious about it, and enjoy. Just like having a sense of acceptance about that is, I think, an important thing that is like a weird psychological hurdle for a lot of people in this hobby, who often have that collector's completionist sort of mentality, where they want to get so much out of it's a miniature world is a world that you can control, and that's kind of hard to let go, the idea sometimes. I think it's the most healthy way to enjoy the hobby. I mean, that's the thing that I grapple with too. I mean, like I said, I still have all the models I've ever had, but yeah.
Ultimately, do whatever brings you joy with the hobby. Like, one of the things I think is so nice about the hobby is how many different ways you can interface with it and enjoy it. Like, you don't have to play the game, you don't have to paint the miniatures. Like, you could write stories, just read the stories, watch video. Like, there's so many ways that you can be involved, and there isn't any one right way to be involved. If you're creating like your own characters and creating like role-playing game experience, like, it doesn't matter. Whatever, if you find joy in it and you're excited about it, that's great. And I'm sure you can find other people who are similarly excited about it.
And one thing to touch on the idea of like maybe like, oh, someone's doing some cool thing halfway across the world, and like you ask, can I get involved in it? It's a great way like to like maybe try a new paint scheme or try some new style that like, like I never did true metal metallic, or I want to do wet blending or get some oils in here. It's like, I'm sending it away, whatever. Like, this is a good opportunity. Like, it's not like I'm painting 2,000 points of this and I better get it right. Like, you don't have to do that. And that there's something that can be somewhat like liberating and freeing about that, which I personally like. But yeah, so, and just meeting new people. I can't say enough about how fun and like sort of inspiring these sorts of events are to be involved in the hobby. But yeah. With that said, are people still excited to play Mordheim? Do you plan to continue to play it?
100%.
I would like to.
I've already started organizing some local games.
Ooh, that's great.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's gonna be really
fun. I want to do some battle reports on my new YouTube channel. I just I gotta wait for that board to get back to me.
Yeah, that's fair. That's
fair. I'm not gonna film it with the terrible terrain I have sitting around here while that thing's in the mail. I'm kind of waiting for that, and then but I do want to do some battle reports. So I actually weirdly enough, I want to play right now. It's only been a week and a half, and I want to play again.
Yeah,
right. It's all the t-shirts you're seeing. That's why.
Yeah, exactly.
What about you, Bill? Do you need a time to recover all that planning?
And that's why I haven't posted pretty much anything on Instagram. I've also just been busy with work and the holidays and stuff. But I actually brought my minis with me to Denmark. Like a few tiny warbands in a shitty Tupperware container. Because I was gonna play against MS Terrain Labs on his first board, but I didn't have enough time. I got there and I think I only had like an hour and a half. So but I think so. I'm already kind of starting to plan a warband for John's campaign. It's gonna be kind of like a casual, like kind of once a month, because that's all I can really get out of the house for a campaign over the next probably 6 months or something like that.
I would like to play again in the future, but I don't imagine I will.
At least not anytime soon. Like, I feel, it can just be hard to get out and play the game, but
I mean, that's fine.
I think I like the building and painting and stuff probably the best, but it's nice for like an event like this to have something to focus on, that like to give you some sort of deadlines and stuff to keep building and finishing stuff, because I don't know, I find projects will grow to fit the deadline you have. It can be difficult, but
I've been trying to knock down all the barriers to play. So what I've been doing is I've been sort of setting up almost like just like the most ready, the highest state of readiness that's possible to be attained. So I have warbands that are ready, and there are rosters that are written for them, and then I've got dice trays with the dice already in them. And so if somebody comes over on the off chance that they're willing to play, like boom, we're playing. You know
It's
what I mean?
ready.
That's
That's a
right.
good idea.
So,
yeah.
and that's how I'm gonna rope people in. Like I did that. Actually, you can see there's a Necrobunda table here last night. My brother and I just did a quick game because he was over, and I had some stuff for something I'm working on that I just had out there, and we just started rolling dice. And it's like some fudge a few rules, and then but the momentum picks up, and then all of a sudden you're playing a game. And it's like you don't have to overplan it. It doesn't have to go off perfectly.
awesome.
The most important thing is to just break down the barrier to entry, and so I think if you're a hobbyist that's more experienced and you have the ability to do that, that's a great way to rope people in. I would love to have a big enough space that I have constantly tables of terrain set up too. That would be the ultimate level of or like one of those James Bond beds where you pull it down and it's boom, it's just a table of terrain comes out of the wall. Then I could play all the time. But
that would be cool.
That's MS Terrain Lab's next table is the foldable.
Murphy bed kind of.
You pull a cord. Just.
Well, I mean, Nikki Grillet, she had her little board kind of in a box
fold-out box.
Can fold out. Yeah, so there are a lot of cool things that you could do, and
oh yeah, that thing was incredible.
Yeah, so doing
actually,
stuff like
Tomas, he mentioned that in that chat we had with him. Like even he appreciated that. But I saw pictures of that all over Instagram, and it was really incredible. Like that's exactly what you're describing, Eric, is having a fold out terrain setup.
Yeah. I was picturing like one of those rafts that's a slide on the airplane, like you just pull a ripcord and it inflates. This is a much more practical and good looking thing. I guess for those who don't know what we're talking about, you should look it up. It's like a suitcase that opens up and then there's a table on the inside, like sort of.
Yeah, isn't her handle isn't it just Nikki Grillet?
Yeah.
Nikki.Grillet or something? Yeah.
Yeah, she worked as a concept designer with John Blanche and stuff for a couple years. For Games
Nikki Grillet, it's one word.
Yeah, she's great. She was actually I think it basically just accepted the position around the Mordheim 2019 event. Really cool. But yeah, my vampire dominated on that board too. Vampires can't be stopped.
The rumor.
I mean, it's something that Mordheim is sort of I think best played when there's a lot of height and such to the board, and that can really help even weaker warbands to be not just there's a bunch of archers up there and they just decimate you, but kind of separate smaller groups into different areas and whatnot, and can make the games more interesting. It's not just a wall of guns on one side and such, which I don't know, sometimes 40k can kind of turn into.
On Nikki's Instagram, if you scroll down a ways, there are some neat posts of the board kind of showing how the thing goes together, how they assembled it, and all that stuff. Very cool, and could certainly give lots of people ideas of things you could try and focus on and create.
There's
just so many talented artists that once you start going down a rabbit hole on Instagram, all of a sudden you'll see somebody whose work is just incredible, and you're like, how have I never seen this before? Even after years in the hobby, and spending so much time, I still find the fella who made your vampire, Red Wet Skeleton. The first time I saw their profile was today, because you posted about it, and I was like, this is great. There's so many people out there who have yet to be discovered and yet to connect with the other people in the community. And there's just it's exciting. You know what I mean? It is a small community, but there's still nooks and crannies full of awesome surprises. And I'm constantly finding that.
And that's kind of about reaching out to people that we mentioned. Eli, Red Skeleton, we became friends with him because we were invited to a kind of a Necromunda themed event, Curse of the Alabaster, that was, I don't know, probably way back in 2016. but he had created some really disgusting chaos spawns and such that he just sent to the event just to like as NPCs and such, and like saw like, wow, these are like horrifying. And then that kind of led us to like connecting with him about like, hey, like we saw these models and such, and now it's a good friend, and I've gone out to visit him a few times, like visit him and like keep back and forth communications and stuff. So like it's fun, just you never know exactly how where the hobby will take you and such. But there, just so many cool people to meet and like see how their style and learn from. Because Red Wet Skeleton, his stuff is creepy and so grimy in the best way possible.
It's funny.
I just followed him because I didn't before. I didn't realize that that's who made that vampire.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so here's someone that's incredibly talented, and he has like 500 followers on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
To the point of this whole conversation, there's so many people that just don't promote what they're doing well enough, but it not. And I'm saying that like in a way that it shouldn't undermine the art at all. Like the stuff that they're making is amazing. Is absolutely mind-boggling.
Or they've just been making incredible stuff not on social media, and they made an account like 3 months ago.
Right. I mean? Like they don't even care. It's more about the art for them.
There's tons of people that have been in this hobby. Like sometimes when you're kind of social media focused, you think that's the hobby, but no, there's like that's the tip of the iceberg. And there are people who maybe look at other people's stuff and watch YouTube videos and listen to podcasts, but don't actually put any of what they've been working on for 20 years out there, and it's incredible. And then one day they just make an account and they post a photo, and it's like, whoa, like you've been sitting on this, like, and there's tons of that, and that's really exciting to me. It's like, like the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
I think that the Warhammer IP, Necromunda, Warhammer Fantasies has had a very, very profound effect on all kinds of creative people. Like, like if you're a creative person, you probably encountered it in your childhood and thought it was cool, right? And that's a very high percentage of creative people were at least interested in flipping through a Warhammer rule book in 1998 or something. And so there's simmering below the surface a huge sort of collective interest and consciousness and artistic energy that's out there, and that's really cool. And that continues to be one of the reasons this hobby is so like rewarding to be a part of.
Agreed.
Exciting. I guess we've been going on for about an hour and a half. Maybe we want to wrap up the podcast here. But before that, is there anything like kind of last words, things you'd like to bring up, mention about the event, or anything pertaining to the hobby?
Can I say a big thank you to Bill, because it was just like 360 no scope of and it went off so well. He just nailed it. Bill, the man.
Yeah, certainly. And like, thanks. Sort of following that, like, thanks for thinking to like even reach out to us to invite us, because it is kind of, in a lot of cases, it can be intimidating, sort of like a cold call almost. Like, hey, would you like to travel such and such? Like, I don't know where you, like, if you're in the United States, or all that stuff can be kind of intimidating, but I feel it's worth it trying to reach out. And yeah,
it definitely made it sound like multi-level marketing, or like Mordheim level marketing, in my pit.
I definitely thought I got pulled into a pyramid scheme for a second, but I was game because you're so charismatic. I was like, okay, I'm on board. Yeah,
like,
I was like,
I'm in for the ride.
Yeah, he's cute. I'm with it.
I was trying to explain to my wife that I wanted to go to this thing, and she's like, "So you know these people, or like?"
Not really.
How
I
do you know
saw
them?
them on Instagram
like, well,
once or twice.
It's like we know each other because
internet
we're the
friends.
same
You're internet
interest,
friends.
you know?
Nothing can go wrong
Yeah.
here, right?
Facebook friends.
I was very flattered when I was invited. That was really cool. I don't know what your criteria was or whatever, but the bribe probably helped. Yeah, no, very cool.
Right on.
Good curation of people.
Yeah. No, I had a blast, and again, I can't thank y'all for coming all the way down to Houston, Texas, probably one of the sexiest cities in America.
Good roads.
So no, it takes time and it takes money for flights, and everyone put a lot of effort into their warbands and their terrain, and especially Alex shipping his board all the way down from Albany, New York, man. God damn. So I really appreciate
a certain level of crazy. There's no doubt about it. But I love you, and it was worth it.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. It was really great chatting with you. Hopefully, we can have you all on again some other time, perhaps pertaining to another event or just chatting about the hobby. Always fun. But yeah, with that, thanks everybody, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
All right, we did it. That's recorded.
You pressed the recording button?
I did. It's all recorded, and I stopped it. I mean, thankfully, at least with stuff like this, at the very least, I think Eric, you said you were recording it, but we can also pool the audio from the Twitch video and stuff. But still, I would rather not be not.
So you're not recording, but are you still streaming?
We're still streaming.
It's still streaming, so we're still chatting. Everybody, is there other stuff like
I have a
we
thing
should?
to say. While we were chatting, I looked out if there's an easy way to make sure a website hosted through Blogger or Blogspot can be secured. There's just a setting you have to click.
Jesus Christ.
Well, damn.
That's awesome. Holy shit.
That rocks.
Well,
wow. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. It's like a simple fix.
For fucking years, like the VA, whether it was at the VA hospital or when I was overseas in the military, like I just could not read y'all's fucking blog.
Oh fuck. Well, we fucked that up.
Well, I guess that's a difficult thing about like the hobby that there's so much you could spend time on, and like even like now doing YouTube videos, Eric, Alex, and such, like by doing that, it's a great service to help get other people excited and show them stuff, but it does cut into your own hobby time, it's
to do anything.
It's a difficult kind of balancing act to spread your time, like record, like doing podcasts, blog posts, even just photographing stuff for Instagram can be sometimes a bit challenging. Like you have to kind of spend that time to prioritize stuff, but I don't know. I think it's worth it. And like, about reaching out to people, I feel just us starting this blog allowed like people would find it, comment, and that like is largely why we've played in some of these things, met John Blanche, all those sorts of things. And like, had we not done that, sort of stepped out to do that, like that probably wouldn't have happened. And I'm sure, Eric, for your hobby workshop, like you've probably just been in contact with so many people excited about the stuff you're doing that like you probably never would have anticipated before you started it. And like, I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's really incredible. And yeah, I mean, it's all the time people say, "Oh, I played my first game today," or "Look, I started building my first project," and it's it's really cool to me to hear that. And Bill probably wouldn't have invited me if I hadn't started a channel. So
it was worth it. It was worth making that major life change for that, right?
Yeah.
I want to know terrain projects Carl Urban's working on right now. That's what I want to know.
Carl Urban, yeah, it's a good question. I wonder. He's in my upcoming video.
Yeah, what did
Did I just shit? Did I just give spoilers?
That's okay. It's all right.
Like, you got to talk to him, and like I saw the picture.
Yeah, I spoke to him very briefly. I didn't like.
Mhm.
I mean, I probably, I didn't want to like cramp his style too much, but I did want to talk to him. So I just went up and very respectfully said, sorry to bother you, but oh my God, it's Carl Urban. No, yeah, he was really nice. He's a really nice guy. Really nice guy. He acts exactly like Billy Butcher from The Boys.
That's great.
That's hilarious.
Except not as violent. At least I didn't
Did
see.
he call you like a good cunt or something?
No, but you know what? I had my phone in my hand, and I was gonna ask him if he would take a photo with me, and he kind of preempted me. He saw my photo in my hand, and he was just like, "Of course, mate." I was like, "Okay, cool." And then I was like, "Well, how about like a real quick video where you just give a thumbs up or something?" And he gave me that like intense look through his eyebrows, the real Carl Urban look, and he was like, "No, but I will take a picture." And he was like, he wasn't mad, but it was an intense Carl Urban look that if I hadn't been a little bit pushy, I wouldn't have got out of him. So I'm happy I did that, because that's the full Carl Urban experience as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah,
that's hilarious.
Yeah, but he was super friendly, super friendly.
That's great.
Yeah, crazy.
Eric,
What time is it where you are, Bill?
Oh, fuck me, man. It is 6:15.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I woke up at right before my alarm clock went off at 3:20, and I saw it. It just said Adam Wires has called you, and I was like, oh shit! And I thought I slept through it.
Okay, no, you didn't.
Yeah,
you made it.
Made it. Yeah, Eric, I think we'll have enough time, man. I mean, I'll text you or I'll message you whenever I land.
We'll make it work. If your flight's delayed, maybe I'll throw some terrain in my trunk and we'll play in the parking lot of the airport. Because Bill's got a stopover in Toronto coming up, and
that's great.
Oh, that's fun.
It's pretty tight, but I'm not that far from the airport, so I'm gonna go pick him up and bring him back here and have a quick game. And
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Small world, right?
Yeah.
This is your chance to really test that always ready battle terrain that we've been describing. Now you need a trunk setup that you can put your trunk open and do tailgate wargaming.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we can plan this more fully offline. But
yeah, right.
You have a warband with you?
Yeah, I've got a mini warband.
Mini warband. All right.
Yeah, so I got 4 or 5. I've got 4 or 5 witch hunters and 4 or 5 sisters of Sigmar.
Okay, I have more witch hunters and more sisters of Sigmar that you could draw from. We'll talk about this later.
Yeah, right. This doesn't have to be.
Yeah. Are you sure you don't want to give out your address online right now?
Yeah, wouldn't that be?
I don't.
I'm going to blindfold you. An unsecured blog.
I'm going to blindfold you at the airport, so you don't even know my address.
Oh,
that's funny. That's funny. Yeah, I don't know. I kind of would like to play in another sort of event type thing in a 40K themed thing, Necromunda. I still have not played the newer version of Necromunda, which admittedly isn't really new anymore.
Yeah,
and I'd kind of like to do that at some point.
Well,
we should get an Inquisitor 28 narrative event going. How sick would that be if we all made Inquisitors? Hell yeah, dude, that'd be awesome.
I was talking to John Hickey about last week, and he's like, man, what's next on the horizon? I was like, fuck, man, I need a break. But he was talking to me when he saw the pictures of that Zone Mortalis board I brought.
Mm-hmm.
And man, he's like, well, let's do an Inquisitor, like you said, Alex, like an Inquisitor thing. And he's like, let's do it next January, or next July. And I was like, dude, no.
That's too soon. Too soon.
Yeah, I
July
think it'd
too
be a
soon?
great idea, maybe like 2024 or something like that.
Yeah, let's at the very earliest say November of 2023, like at least 1 year, at least a full year, and then we can take it from there.
I find the interesting thing, and we kind of talked about, like Eric, you mentioned about how you were maybe a bit apprehensive that everyone was going to know the rules and such. And I feel my experience with most things like this, it's just like no one really knows the rules that well because they don't play the games much anymore. But like
Right.
everyone kind of knows, like it's a GW game, like 4+, yeah, that's successful. Like, oh, maybe it's a little harder, make it a 5+.
Yeah.
Like I feel most of us have been playing long enough. It's just like, yeah, I started in like third edition, 40K, and like I don't play that much. So my remembrance of those is a combination of third through like seventh edition with Gorka Morka,
Yeah.
old Necromunda, and Mordheim in there. So like I don't know if this rule is from that game or this one, but like it's fine.
Yeah.
Just roll some dice and roll with it.
When in doubt, you need a 4. And you can always
Mhm.
just roll the dice, and if it's a 6 or 1, you know what happened. You only really
Yeah.
need to look it up if it's like a 3 or a 5. You know?
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's true.
Just keep the game going. Just roll the dice.
And
That's
yeah,
my
I think that's
philosophy.
kind of a fun element of it. Like you just don't need, like it isn't a tournament. You don't need to get that caught up on like a minor rule thing. Like just go with it
Yeah, I
and
mean
see
the
where
dice and the rule set is just it's there to kind of help forge your own
facilitate.
narrative,
Yeah.
facilitate what's going on. Like it's just to help suggest how things go. Like ultimately, you can do what you want.
Yeah. I think the dice will punish you as
Yeah.
hard, if not harder, than like a poor decision of your own will.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah,
might as
that's
well
likely
play a
true.
little bit loose, you know, like you don't have to be so precious about like, should I move this guy? Or, It's just like, just go with it, you know, just go with your instinct, and then, you know, the dice are
It'll
gonna
And
help
probably
you if
suffer
they
the
be
want.
okay.
consequences.
Yeah.
Let the dice gods decide your fate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Eric, I'm really glad you brought up the fact of like just jumbling rules together in your head from like different editions for like two reasons. One, like when I teach my wife how to play these games and she begrudgingly like obliges me when I get like really, really jazzed about something, I get those like mixed up all the time. And I'm like, she's like, "What do I need to roll again?" I'm like, "You take the six-sided dice, the D6." She's like, "Is it a D20?" I'm like, "No." And I was like, "You need a 4+." And she's like, "Oh, okay." And she rolls. I'm like, "Oh, I know. You need to roll this." She's like, "Are you fucking cheating? Like playing a game with your wife?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "No, no, no. They're all jumbled up." But
Yeah.
Here's how we're gonna play. You roll, and I'll tell you if you hit.
Yeah, right. But
Yeah.
that's the thing. Like I feel at the end of the day, like the majority of GW games are kind of the same. I mean, I guess some of the newer ones like Warcry is streamlined more. And I guess with that said, Inquisitor is quite different. It's like a D100 thing and it's more arduous, which I feel is why most people who doing 28 sort of things do some like
Iteration of
bastardization of one
Necromunda.
Necromunda rule set just because
Yeah.
it is a bit easier and like more consistent with the other games everyone kind of knows how to play in
Yeah.
some sense.
Well, I
And I
mean,
think that's better because like you don't want to be like, oh, all these people come over to play something and you're spending most of the time in a rule book when like the time is already pretty limited. Again, it ultimately doesn't matter that much.
yeah.
Yeah. I think the way that the rules are presented for GW games makes them seem a lot more complicated than they really are. Like you have
Yeah,
that stats line with all the letters and all the numbers. Like that is so intimidating for a beginner. It's like it should just say, okay, to kill somebody, you need to roll a 4 twice in a row. And you know, like, and you can move 4 inches. And it's like, okay, let's start playing, and the rest will come to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Which
you
I
really
think,
don't.
yeah.
Their newer systems like Warcry and that has certainly moved more in that direction, trying to remove
Do you
some
really
of
need
that.
to make 4 rolls to see if someone gets hurt?
Or do
Maybe
you really
not.
have to consult a table to see like you needed a 4+?
Yeah.
to hit. Like, just say that, or
there are good tables and there are bad tables. Good tables have words, bad tables have numbers.
yeah.
You know? I purposely have not read all the tables in the Necromunda rulebook. Like, especially the expiration chart, I don't want to know until I roll it.
Yeah, that's
true.
that's very true.
That's so much more fun. It's like if I get quads one day, I'm so excited. I've never looked at that page. I've never rolled 4.
Uh-huh.
You know,
Yeah,
it's like that'll be so exciting to see what's on there.
Which is interesting because that concept, like particularly for like RPGs and such, if it's like a new setting or whatever, all the random tables for generating dungeons or monsters or whatever is interesting because those tables are a good way to kind of world build and convey what is possible there without having to have walls of text that people don't want to read, which I think is kind of fun. And it's a way to sort of get a peek into the head of the designers of like what was in their headspace at the time, which is kind of neat. But I think, Mordheim, all the advancement stuff, exploration stuff, I think is something that makes it as engaging and like you still want to play it as much as people still do, because there is all these fun things that could happen. Whereas I feel some games like, and even like something like Frostgrave is like great for like playing games and stuff, but I feel it has maybe streamlined out some of the more exciting progression elements because like only your like wizard or whatever is gonna be gaining experience and stuff. But that, I guess that's also, there's like the balance of, do you want to make it easy for pickup games or not? And so there's a lot of stuff that you have to consider, I guess, when writing a rule set, which Alex, he's writing all sorts of rule sets, so has some experience with that.
You know, and you just mentioned Frostgrave, and I have my copy of Frostgrave sitting right here. I was like literally looking. I was looking through it today because every time the winter rolls around in upstate New York, I want to play Frostgrave because it just feels like it just feels wintry, and I'm like, that's the game I want to play right now. It is so that's all true. Like it is so streamlined compared to Mordheim. Like it's missing like a lot of that flair, which is great because I feel like I could teach my 9-year-old nephew Frostgrave in 30 minutes, which I probably wouldn't be able to. I mean, I could get him playing Mordheim, but he wouldn't understand what he was doing. He'd just kind of be following me with the dance, so to speak.
Yeah.
But it loses in, you know, the trade-off is it loses some of that meat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, people often complain about swinginess in a rule set, but that's what gives it that sort of like roulette table, like heart pumping, rolling on the chart sort of aspect. It's like, you know, balance is overrated. It's all about exhilaration.
Well, have anyone here played Malifaux? Does anyone have any experience with Malifaux? I haven't had a ton of it, but I think
Miniature war game I ever played.
I think it was a really nice balance of having detailed, interesting characters and randomness, but giving you some control over, like, because you don't roll dice, you just kind of reveal cards from a standard deck of cards, and like, oh, you need to like reveal a card of this, like this 10 or above or whatever to be successful or do a thing. But you always have like a hand of, I don't remember how many cards you have that you can always use, and like you flip over a card, and like if it isn't good enough, you can just take a card in your hand and replace it. And it gives you a really nice, like, there's still the randomness, but like you have a little bit more control, such that you won't necessarily like just hugely fail something and like lose everything, but then again, like you might just waste all the cards in your hand for trivial bullshit and still like get rocked. But I really liked it because of it still has random things and crazy stuff can happen, but you feel like you're a little bit more in control of things. And if something goes poorly, it's just like, well, I had opportunities to manipulate this and I squandered them, so like I deserve that.
Bad things happen.
Yeah.
That is one thing I do not like about the Mordheim rules. Is there are a lot of moments where it's like you wish you could put your thumb on the scale a little bit with a reroll or something, like some super clutch shot that you're trying to make, and it's just, I missed, and it just feels like it's like I know that happens, but it would be nice to have.
And I think for some of the equipment and stuff, like you can get ropes and stuff and things that to like re-roll and sort of mitigate that. But like you have to know that's there and you have to like search for it and buy it and such. Like I think it could, with some slight tweaks for some modern game design to help like minimize some of that would be nice.
I really like command point re-rolls in 40K.
Yeah.
Because you get a few do-overs per turn. Like that, it just makes it like, because then you have a little bit more control over the things that are important to you.
And if you roll that second one, it's just like, this was supposed to happen.
Yeah, you still have that element of fate and stuff. It's not like you get auto passes, which would, take the fun out of the game.
Yeah, I think that is because it's never great if you like lose a game and feel like it was primarily like you couldn't have controlled it much. Like you did everything you could, but like it just constantly was beating you down. So like, But Malifaux, I mean, maybe there's probably another edition now, and I don't know, maybe it's changed, but I think they did a good job of giving you like the feeling of control, but not really. Because I know Anna from Gardens of Hecate, like most of her, until she more recently designed her own rule set to play her games, like she was primarily using Malifaux, like modifying the rules and warbands and stuff because just the system was good. I personally don't love their models.
She designed her own card deck to go.
Yeah, she did. To be used in Malifaux, which is pretty cool.
Malifaux, good game, bad miniatures.
Also,
so I actually wrote this this text file out today because I was like racking my brain about just this, about like game design and like what makes a good, like all this stuff we're talking about right now, like what makes a good game, like in terms of like swinginess and the appropriate level of randomness, even starting options. I mean, I wrote like a whole file earlier today, like just literally going down the list. So it's interesting to hear your guys' thoughts on the same topic.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, Malifaux's cool.
And another thing, how the game is played, you have typically very few models, and while it is a little complicated, most of the models have interesting special rules and abilities and stuff that really fits in with the notion of like, oh, you're designing your own little warband with unique characters with different abilities and capabilities and stuff. And so I think it would work really well for like an Inc. 28 type setting.
Just because it's a small like model set, like you could kind of create your own rules, maybe base it slightly on some other warbands in the game, but modify it. And it's cool. It's just the models aren't great, or I just don't like the style of them.
Some of them were good for a very short window.
They're basically just super tall with super small heads.
They're really cartoony too, right? I mean, I've seen them.
Yeah.
It looks like if Clamp, the manga collective,
you're right,
drew X and Clover and a bunch of things. It looks like if they made a miniature game, that's what they do.
Also, this needs to be mentioned. Between the Bolter and Me is now a secure website.
Nice.
Yeah.
How do you guys feel in general about cards as part of wargaming? I'm not sure. I'm big into having cards be like, because it just feels to me like
You mean
you're
reference cards or like a randomization card element?
like a deck of cards that's like a big part of the mechanic. It seems to me like that start to get a departure from a tabletop game into like almost like a hybrid. When you start
I
to
don't
have
know
too
what
much
I
card
really
This is
thought.
this is the key element for the game I'm writing right now for Dead by
So
Lead. It
I
uses a
wasn't
fucking
sure
deck of
about
cards.
it, but after playing a few games of Malifaux, I thought it worked really well. So I think you can do it, but
Cards good, but a bitch ton of tokens that you have to deal with, not good. Fuck,
yeah.
like
Yeah.
the Star Wars X-wing miniature game, fucking great game. Like it's fun.
Oh,
Yeah,
actually
it's
yeah.
really good.
It's a good
It's
game.
really
I haven't
good.
played since the first edition. I have like a bunch of the first edition shit, but I did love X-Wing when it first came out.
Mother of fuck. Do you have so many little tokens
And little
all this
cards and
bullshit
shit.
that like
Yeah, I literally have all my X-Wing stuff stored in tackle boxes
Mhm.
because I
It's
had like
just
everything
so much.
compartmentalized, like in terms of tokens.
And then like
It's just
each
so much, yeah.
and so many little cards, reference
Yeah.
cards, and like, oh, these are the upgrades they got, which are nice in some extent, but then
Yeah.
like you're like half the table is all these little fucking cards that is
Yeah.
not yeah.
Yeah.
like, if you have cards, if it's to replace dice, okay. If you have cards for other reasons, it gets into shaky territory.
Unless
Yeah,
it's just strictly like they decide like give you a one card that has all the stat lines for your warband. Like
but
some of
that's
that stuff can be
one
pretty nice.
card.
that's useful. Yeah, like a reference
Yeah.
card, super useful.
Yeah.
Cry, with the reference cards. That's what I meant. But yeah, I'm using like standard playing cards as a key element right now for Dead by Lead. It's like
That's
it's like
cool.
the crux of the system. So we'll see that the test of time here. Either I'm going to feed
Right.
into exactly what we're talking about, and it's going to go terribly.
Well, have you read the rule system to Malifaux?
No, I have I've never.
You should look into it because it's
never
cool because they all like you reveal cards to like, oh, maybe you need a 7 or higher to be successful, but then a lot of them, like depending on whatever suit you reveal, maybe one character, like their abilities also work better with a particular suit, and if it's that suit as well as the number you need, it might trigger additional abilities and such, and it's like kind of fun and tight system that
So
offers a
Malifaux
lot of
uses playing cards.
playing cards.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I
Yeah.
didn't catch. I thought it was like a specialty deck.
No.
No, it's just like they print their own decks, but it's literally just a deck of playing cards. Admittedly, they have different suits, but like they're designed like this is the clubs, this is the spades, but they have different names and stuff. And they use the jokers. The jokers are something they like I mentioned I think they call it cheating fate, that you like replace the card you revealed with one that you had in your hand, but you can never cheat the joker. The red joker is like auto success, critical type shit, and the black joker is like shit went bad and
Bad stuff
you should feel
happens.
bad.
Yeah.
But
Me saying cards good, that's if you're using a standard card deck. Like if it's all making your own shit like that, I feel is less good because it's this own new thing
that like
So-
someone has to learn, and like I don't know what the fuck this symbol is, or like, and that I think is you're sort of mentioning, Eric, that converge a little bit too much. Like, did you just want to make a board game? Because maybe you should have done that.
Right. The new Necromunda has cards, and I don't like to play with them because they becomes a whole thing where it's like depending on what your opponent has in their hand is its whole thing. And when they release new cards for a new faction, people like snap them up, and then they're like, "Oh, there's no more." It's like it's a card.
It's
like
fucking dumb.
and some of them really break the game. Like there's a card called Click where you can just like reveal it, and your opponent who just shot is out of ammo.
Oh
It's
my
like,
god.
oh, dude, like what? my guy with the best gun forgot to load his gun again. Like
every game. Every game.
Come on, man. Like, and then some of the faction specific cards, they get better and better. And it's like, I'm not interested in collecting cards that just have a rule written on them because they're going to give me an advantage in game. Like, to me, there's no visual appeal to it, which is, I think, my biggest criticism of it.
Yeah, that to me is like the worst sort of gaminess that.
Well, and that's what sucked about X-Wing. You had all those upgrades with their tiny little cards that were kind of cool because they often had good art, but then you like had to get them somehow, and you probably had to buy extra shit to get them, and then you had to put them by the board, and like you just had so much shit.
And like if you weren't
you
really
need like
into
a minimum. You need like a minimum 3 foot by 3 foot area flat to just play X-Wing because of all the shit you have on the table.
And kind of like you're saying, Eric, like
and only 2 feet of that is playing area.
Yeah, and it sort of sucks that it's just like, oh, we're playing this game. It's like, wait, what happened? Like my gun's out of ammunition. Like why the fuck did that happen? Like, are you sure that's right? Like, oh yeah, they just printed this. Like, oh, it's just more stuff that gets in the way of enjoyment that like. That you have to learn and be prepared for, and like that's not fun for me.
I don't want it on the table either.
Yeah,
I want the uncluttered table because I want to take a picture and be transported. You know what I mean? And that's also I think like there's the little kid in me that like when I'm in a store and I pick up a box and I turn it around to see what's in it, I want to see toys. I don't want to see cards and tokens. You know what I mean? Like, and they lay it out like it's an appealing thing. It's like, look at all the little fiddly bits that it comes with that aren't the models, and then it comes with 3 models, and you're like, I don't want that stuff in my house. Like, like, I'm probably just gonna paint this and never play the game. So like, it's not appealing to me. I'm gonna lose
one
those
thing,
things.
Games Workshop, so they for their Underworlds thing. That like half of it is kind of a card game, and I find I think it works pretty well for that, but that's because like that is like a core thing that like is the game, whereas I think for someone like Necromunda there, that's more just like how can Games Workshop not really spend any development time or any real money on something, but still like print shit that they can charge too much money for and get people to like feel like, oh, I better make sure I get that, even though I'll probably never take it out of the pack and never use it. And that to me just seems more like just cheap way to make more revenue rather than something that was truly designed to
enrich
be an important element of the game.
Yeah, the Blackstone Fortress too, like the Underworlds, like those to me, they feel like they're a different game, and they're just using the fact that the game needs game pieces to release rare minis, and I'm cool with that. It's not a blurred line to me. It's like that's a board game,
Yes,
and the fact that it comes with minis is like cool. Well, I can port those into something else I'm doing. So. I've never played Underworlds, and I don't really have a desire to. Like, I mean, if somebody had a board set up, maybe, but I don't feel like learning a gridded rule system that uses miniatures very much because I'm all about immersion, So
yeah, I do think Underworlds. Or at least, I mean, there have been so many versions now. Who knows where it is now? But the first edition or two, I think it was honestly one of Games Workshop's better games. Yeah. Because it was very focused on being a game. But I think now it's so bloated that there are so many cards you could buy and probably should buy because, like, oh, you better buy every edition because each one has that one OP card that you need. And, like, that, it's probably progressed. It's, like, too niche now. And, like, you could really get into the weeds of, like, what are the perfect cards to get, and that doesn't interest me a lot, but I think it's a neat system, even though I don't want to play it competitively because you would have to spend, it should be something like, oh, you spend $40 and you have a warband and you're ready to play, but to truly play in one of their events, you need to spend like basically the amount you'd need to get a 3,000 point army because you literally need to buy everything to be competitive, and that isn't fun.
Can you imagine if other board games were like this? Like if Monopoly released like new community chest cards like quarterly.
It's a bad game.
Hey, like Games Workshop games.
Yeah,
There's something in common.
Yeah.
So, hey, friends.
We should go to bed.
Midnight 13 on the East Coast. Like, Bill got up too early and is still up. Like, we need to.
Yeah.
I need to be up at 6 tomorrow.
Yeah, me too. Like, let's.
But
I gotta wake up with my son tomorrow. Probably about 6:30. I'll start shouting.
Read that.
Yeah, but yeah. Well, thanks for being willing to get on this stream here and being on the podcast. It was super fun to chat with you all again about the event and other things. Like, really fun, and glad you were able to make it.
Like it, I think.
Yeah, we'll have to have you back to discuss who knows what. Well, maybe when
Alex will play your games.
Yeah, we could discuss that stuff. That would be fun.
Yeah.
Look forward to seeing your video, Eric.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, this was a lot of fun, and thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, no, it was great. All right, everybody. Thanks for watching, being with us. Keep on enjoying the hobby. Stay safe. Stay healthy. Until next time. Over and out.
Yep. See you, everybody.
See ya.
It'll be fine.
It'll probably be fine.
Be.